All right. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. I apologize in advance. I'm based out of California, and I got hit with some allergies, so I'm a little stuffed today. So I apologize in advance. I'm really excited to share with you, the topic of today: the 7 product plays to drive B2B SaaS growth. It's a topic that has been near and dear to my heart. Throughout my career, I've built enterprise products for medium-sized companies and beyond. And what I'd like to do before we get into the discussion is to just share kind of a few little housekeeping items. So yes, we are recording the webinar. We will be sending this out to you as long with the slides after the webinar. And we will have time for Q&A at the end. So if you have questions, feel free to post in the chat area as well as on Twitter. Just make sure you mention the hashtag product experience, and I'll be scrolling through those in the Q&A section. Now, to start us off, I start with a question. Really, who in your organization today is responsible for growth? So let me introduce a poll here. So I'm launching a poll now. This should have popped up on your screen. So take a look. And let me know who in your organization today, if your CEO says, who has responsibility for growth? I'm curious to see how this comes in. Yep. All right. So some of we've got some answers coming in. You've got marketing, sales, success, business development, product. Okay. Yeah, this is as expected. So, so let me end the poll here. So what we just discovered really is not anything, I'd say, dramatically new. For B2B organizations, it looks a little like this, right? Traditional B2B SaaS go-to-market teams, their marketing, sales, success team, they are the ones who have typical responsibility. Share with you well, you got your poor product person out on the side on the bench here, and that is certainly not the case with everyone, but it's the results of the poll said exactly that. Most people voted for sales, most people secondarily marketing, and then success. Product, there were a number of companies, which is very promising to see. That's really how it should be. If you're building a technology product or a SaaS offering, you as a product leader need to be involved in that go-to-market discussion, in the planning, and also hold yourself and your teams accountable for the success. At my last company, one of our first leadership team meetings, the CEO kind of goes around the table and he says, well, what are we doing to drive new business? And of course, the room pivots their heads and they all look at the sales leader. All right, and this person starts talking about, well, we need this and we need that, and we really need more at-bats. And so then the room turns to the marketing head. So marketing, what's going on with pipeline? And what are you doing to drive pipeline? Oh, we're doing this, that, and the other. The other half of the equation was, all right, well, what are we doing to increase our customer retention? Heads roll over to the head of success. And now they talk about the programs they're running, the engagements, the onboarding, the plays that they make to, one, gain the customer to stay with them longer, identify upsell, cross-sell opportunities. And I found in that early days of my last company, the product, the eyes would roll to me only when there was a problem. Right? Success said, oh, we're doing a great job, but we're having a difficulty keeping customers using product A. And then the eyes would turn to myself and they'd say, well, Travis, what is going on with the product? And it was a dynamic that I was very happy to have seen change. But it's not too uncommon on the go-to-market side. Sales, get more customers. Success, keep more customers. Sales having trouble, marketing, what's your plan? So let me take a few minutes to drill into why that is. You look at the traditional B2B buyer journey, and this is with a traditional marketing and sales-led go-to-market path. It looks something like this. The customer's first interaction with your company is through marketing collateral. The marketing team is responsible for drawing you in with the proper messaging and value propositions and getting you to the website, getting you to fill out a form, nurturing you with email until you're ready to be speaking with a salesperson. A handoff occurs, and then a sales rep gets involved, qualifies the business to make sure that even though there's interest on the buyer side, that there is also interest as far as qualifying that prospect. So now the sales team is involved. Now, what you'll notice here is that the purchase happens as the sales team is interacting with the prospect, Then there's another handoff that goes to the success team. Now, calling your attention here, access to the product, this is a big deal. This is the point in which the customer, after hearing the beautiful messaging that your marketing team has created, been drawn into your value propositions, been convinced by the salesperson that they're going to achieve success with your product, it's only until after that they've made that purchase that they're finally seeing the product in its use for them. Now, this is, well, before I get into the challenges of this model, what we find is that product is not a part of this equation. Even if you get into this part of the equation as the product leader, your influence as far as what you've built to solve that customer's problem can really only influence and kick in after the purchase. So what you see here is that the marketing team has touch points with the customer, the sales team has touch points, the success team has touch points. So it's not uncommon for an organization with this marketing and sales-led strategy to look across the room and say, sales leader, what are we doing? Marketing leader, what are you doing? Success leader, what are you doing? And only when there's a problem do you talk to the product person. And that's the piece that needs to change. What happens here, and I alluded to this earlier, that this creates this massive customer valuation expectation gap, or customer value expectation, right? They bought in on the value of what they believe or what has been presented to them that you can deliver with your product. Now, what happens, or what can happen, is that because this expectation is built up, and the expectation may not always meet reality, and as a result, what do? To grow new business, you hire more sales team, you you invest more in your marketing to acquire new customers. You get more customers. What do you then do? You need more customer support and customer success teams, team members, to then bridge that gap to say, yes, I know you bought because of this reason, this value prop, and we're almost there. Let me fill in the gaps to make sure that we can keep you as a customer. This customer expectation gap is only getting worse. The trends that are impacting this really has to do with how buyers today are influenced, and their expectations are changing with how they buy business software. It is starting to look a lot more like how you buy consumer products. You know, up to 90%, you are getting your own information. You're not interacting with a salesperson. You find it so much more convenient to actually make a purchase through a website. And you look at 59% of buyers prefer not to interact with a sales rep. And you take these things into consideration, and the model, what happens here is that the traditional model, it no longer meets those buyer expectations. So this gap continues to build and build and build. And the result is that it's harder and more costly for you to acquire customers. It's more costly for you to keep them. And I'm happy to share with you the answer here is to lead with your product, to execute a product-led go-to-market strategy. Now, a concise example of what this looks like, your product-led go-to-market strategy, it's an action plan. It describes repeatable and scalable processes for how a company acquires, retains, and grows customers. And the key here is that you're doing so by leveraging your product. Your product becomes an acquisition channel, and as well as a communication channel. So now, with this mental model as a product leader, you can start to imagine here the process shifts this way. You in product, you're now part of this growth equation, right? So you have your visitors come in, your marketing team is responsible for getting people into your product, get them to use the product. You now have a responsibility to make sure that those people are using your product successfully. So you see product team down below, the customer has access to the product so much sooner in the buying cycle, and the product team is now involved much, much earlier in that process as well. So there's less of these handoffs that occur and much more alignment across the organization around what it means to make a customer successful. We'll get into some of the more details of how you pull this off, but the reason that we're talking about this today is that now your product experience influences every aspect of the customer lifecycle, not just trying to make up for that expectation gap that occurs, but now has a role in converting trial users into customers. You know, they're still evaluating at this stage. You have responsibilities now to onboard those customers properly. It's not a matter of having, a multi-week onboarding experience with a success team, although there is value in doing that. You want to be able to help them in a self-serve fashion using your product. And again, the same is true with how they adopt new features or new capabilities. Retention is also something that you can now help influence and drive. You can take customers that are using given features, involve them into being customer advocates of yours. And then also on the expansion side. So all of this now, you have a new mental model to operate on to how you think about what you build. Now with this new stage, or this new mental model, you really need to start thinking about the plays that you're going to run. As a product leader, marketing teams have this, sales teams have this, success teams have this. They say, I have a challenge with marketing, for example. If I have a challenge in acquiring new customers and I have to meet new deadlines quickly, I can introduce promotions. I have plays to do that. On the product side, we have this huge opportunity now with the way that our products are being evolved and delivered through software as a service. We have a huge responsibility to now step up into this role to be a part of the go-to-market conversation. Now, what we're going to talk about today, we're going to go into some details, share some examples around these plays that you can think about and now execute to influence the growth of your organization. That is including new business as well as keeping and expanding existing customers. So the first item here is prioritizing your roadmap for growth. We'll cover what that means in a second, but it's changing the mindset of being a ticket holder, creating features based upon what your customers are requesting or saying that they need in order to close a deal, and moving it into helping them realize value and prioritizing the features and reinvesting in features as you see friction points or areas that aren't working as well as they could. The second is personalizing the product experience and specifically the trial experience. The third here, creating opportunities with product qualified leads. This is a very juicy topic, a very meaty topic. Marketing teams have this definition. They have an operating model around how they use to qualify new business or new leads. The same is now true with your product. You have this concept of product qualified leads. Number 4 here, onboarding your users to aha moments in your product. Making sure that, one, you understand what their experience looks like and the value that they receive. You want to make sure that you can tie those two together and you're helping them achieve those moments. The 5th here is creating release experiences. As you're introducing new capabilities, you want to make sure that your customers are adopting them as best as they can based upon their experience with what you're doing. And so creating a release experience is going to help you increase adoption. No customer is going to get value from your solution if they aren't using it. The last 2 items here, using your product as a marketing channel. You have created a set of users that are in the right mindset to achieve the problems that you help them solve. And you have a great opportunity to have mind share with them and introduce new information to them in that moment. And the last item here, we talked about customer retention, and so ways of doing that. So let's drive into the first, prioritizing your roadmap for growth. Now, we've got 4 items here. The first I'll talk about is features that impact that first mile of product. You'll hear about first-time user coming into your product. You hear about the empty state challenges. There's no data in your product. How do you help them realize the value of your product when they can't see it easily, what they're going to get when they start using your product? Okay, so making sure that you understand what are those first set of features that you should be guiding them to, or that you'll want them to realize value from, and making sure that you invest in those features. It's a big deal if you have users coming into your product, not being able to easily understand and realize value, and then bouncing out of your product, maybe never to come back, right? The second area here is removing areas of friction. Now, you consider that life cycle that we just presented. There is a different set of things your customers are going to want to do with your product if they are in their first 90 days, if they are in their mid-year working with you, or they're up close to a renewal event. There are different things that cohort of users are going to try to achieve, and you want to make sure that you have removed any sort of friction for them to achieve those goals in those stages. Some of the tools that we have at our disposal, we talk about Net Promoter Score. I mean, that's giving you this baseline of health for your customers. And you can use that kind of as this top-line measure of how well is my product satisfying my customers based upon their willingness to recommend my solution to someone else. Now, you wouldn't want to run that every day. There's going to be moments that make sense. And so if you look at it in a quarterly basis, that gives you this top-line baseline. You can take some information from that, but it's typically not enough outside of raising a flag and saying, hey, there's an issue. My Net Promoter Score has dropped down. I typically have a high NPS. It is a flag raise, right? So consider it that way. What you then want to have to identify these areas of friction is, you have other tools. You have, customer effort surveys that you can execute. You have, customer satisfaction surveys that you can run. And these can be now not just top line overall usage. These could be tied to their experiences with given features or given areas of the product. So again, this is something that's the cadence can be a little higher, and you can get information that is more actionable. I can identify features where I have customers saying that they had a lot of effort to get this the way that they had expected, and that becomes an area that you want to continue to prioritize and invest in. Removing these areas. We talk about the marginal user, the users that are having the most trouble with your product. Identify where those are and invest in those areas. Okay. The third aspect of prioritizing your roadmap for growth, you want to be able to understand what features are being used by the customers that are giving you revenue. And this is an area, again, it's certainly important that you understand and you don't over-index on this, but there's features that are being used by customers, and you want to be able to understand which of those actually matter. There are features that your customer will buy based upon the value proposition. And then when it comes to using that product, you'll find that it doesn't generate the most, the anticipated value, again, that expectation gap. So we had at Marketo, we had, the core flagship product was the marketing automation system. And customer would start using marketing automation, and would start delivering personalized email engagements. And we had a cross-sell offering, which was the revenue cycle analytics, the RCA. This was the kind of the help you understand your revenue attribution. It's on steroids, right? Really get to the meat of what's working and what's not. And what we found was there was high interest in solving that problem, and there was a friction area within that product that was keeping people from realizing that value. So it was an area that we continued to invest in over time until we got it right. And again, that was an area that if you looked at very closely, you would see that it was generating great revenue and it was not sticking. There was challenges around keeping those customers happy, and that became an area that, because that feature was associated revenue, was very important. So we understood that. And we also knew that we needed to invest in it further because it was such a good revenue driver. And the last item here that we'll talk about around prioritizing your roadmap for growth, it doesn't sound intuitive, but if you are able to remove a burden on your development team, if you're able to take something away that they would typically have to wrestle with, you can now invest those. I hate to call people resources, as tacky as can be, but you can reinvest their time and energy and talent into things that work. These other three areas. My last company, we took some very bold moves. We had to invest, we chose to invest in a new product area. And we started doing our diligence around, defining exactly what it is, what are the time frames in which we can deliver to market. And what we found was that the time to market was so far out based upon the team that we had in place that we were never going to make it. We had to make a different decision. We had to look and see what was our team working on today? What were the features that they were supporting on an ongoing basis? And we identified an area of the product that was historically being sold. We had a huge amount of effort, and it wasn't the primary reason customers were buying from us. So we had the choice of taking that feature out of the mix. Now, there's a process all on its own to do this well. But it was something that when we did that, we got to focus our team on the right things as opposed to continuing to invest just because that's what we had done in the past. So again, a very powerful thing to influence growth is being able to take things away. So don't forget about that angle as you approach prioritizing your roadmap. Now, the second topic is personalizing that trial experience. Now, in this example, you have a customer that's come into your product. They're trying it for the first time. They're still evaluating. They have not, they're not convinced yet. You want to be able to help them. Just as there's so many parallels to what you can do and learn from how marketing has operated in guiding and nurturing your customers. And their vehicles of doing so have traditionally been with email. But now your prospect is in your product. They're using your product. You can provide them relevant information based upon what they're doing in your application. If you have 3 or 4 different aha moments or value propositions to provide them, you can look at which ones they're starting to use and then provide additional information within your product. So at Aptrinsic, for example, we have great value propositions around helping you understand what your customers are doing in your product. We also allow you to engage with people within your product directly. So taking those two things, if a customer is looking at the analytics aspect of my product, I want to present to them information that's relevant to how do you get the most value from understanding this information? What are the things you can do? What are some other customers that are doing this and the outcomes they have achieved? I don't want to present the opposite at that point. I want to take into account what they were interested in and then provide information to them when it makes sense in the product, as well as nurturing them with relevant content through email when they're not in the product. And again, putting this growth mindset on, you look at what your customers are doing and you're operating to help them, not just pushing, your agenda, so to speak. The last item here, B2B SaaS companies, a majority of us, we are going to have a sales organization. They are an invaluable aspect of the purchasing process, and you want to make sure that they have the right information available to personalize their engagements with those prospects at the right time, right? So for example, you have a customer that I mentioned before using a specific area of your product. Your salesperson can now understand what are the things or what aspect of that product that they're using. And instead of having a kind of a standard presentation or standard pitch meeting, they can tailor their experience and even the timing of their communications with the prospect around what they're trying to achieve. And again, it's very much a way for you as a product leader to get information to your teams to help them become more effective. Item number 3, and we mentioned this earlier, but creating opportunities with product qualified leads. Let me take a moment to describe what a product qualified lead is. For those that have built products for marketers, we talk about marketing qualified leads. It's a concept of looking at who a person is. So you have that profile data. You look at the companies that they are affiliated with or work for to help qualify if they're good customers for you to have, and their behavior index. What are the type of messages? What is the content that they are engaging with on your website or via email channel? This same concept is now distilled because your customers or your prospects are in your product. The behaviors that they exhibit within your product now has importance. It now has importance to their level of qualification for upsell or cross-sell opportunities. So the example that I want to share here, there's an excellent SaaS company called Gusto. They build products for small businesses, and they help human resources. They have payroll solutions. They also have solutions that help small businesses manage their benefits and their 401k and health coverage and things like that. They had grown their business through this product-led go-to-market strategy. They have close to 40,000 customers now after starting in 2011. It's a tremendous amount of growth because of the work that they do. So what they had done, their typical customer comes in, buys their payroll solution. They have maybe 2 or 3 employees, and they start running payroll. After a period of time, they also have this secondary offer, this health benefits. But what they do is they've defined their product qualified lead, or when it's relevant to approach this customer with a cross-sell offer, they define this PQL as when any customer that's using Gusto Payroll, once they add 10 or more employees, that's the time when a customer is typically thinking about, how do I manage additional services? Or how do I that would be the right moment in which they would be more likely to gain value from our health benefits offering. And so because this is now defined, the next step that happens is when that customer, remember they have 40,000, when one of those 40,000 customers reaches that threshold, they now have the ability to automate a lot of the engagements around this. And again, getting to scalable growth is another interesting topic we can cover at a later time. But they'll send you a notification within your product as you log into your product. And they'll send this to administrators, specifically the right people within the application that are going to be the ones taking action on that. They'll also follow up with an email presenting this Gusto health benefits offering. Again, timing it based upon where the customer is and what they've done with the product. Now, we mentioned before about giving your sales teams the right information. This is also true with providing information to your success organization or to your account teams. Now, what happens here is that they become notified they know now that the customer was presented this automated offering and that they can provide that ancillary support to win that upsell business. And again, this is very different. This is a very customer-centric way of approaching an upsell, right? I know that my experience in the past has been, the company has goals, we have to achieve them, we have decreased revenue, we want to target customers, we have a good install base, we want to target customers now to approach them with an upsell or cross-sell offer. And that becomes a charter, and all the sales organization goes and does their best to pitch existing customers that new offering. Now, there's what's missing from that equation is the customer ready? What was the qualification in which it makes sense for them to take advantage of this offer, right? It was missing that customer-centric aspect around their readiness to realize that value. Number 4, product play number 4, onboarding your users to aha moments. So we had an event back in November where we had Ken Rudin, who's the head of growth at Google, share with us this example. So I want to share this again with you today. Google Drive, they have within their application an onboarding flow. And he talked a great deal about how to optimize and onboard your users to complete these activation moments. And so what they found was providing the value propositions did help. However, they ended up testing and creating this new contextual guidance. And instead of presenting these value propositions up front, which was causing a drop-off, they were then able to provide in context the action that resulted in a stickier customer, a higher value add. When someone uploads a file into Google Drive, it's only then that they can start to realize value. So that becomes a critical activation point for their customers. And so this new example on the right-hand side is exactly that. And they saw a dramatic increase in the, the drop-off was much less, and they were able to present this into every customer as opposed to only those that completed an onboarding trial. So again, onboarding is critically important with a focus on activating specific areas. To talk a bit more about an aha moment, it's important that you understand what they are, and not just out of your own beliefs, but out of what your customers have shared with you around the value that they get from your product. Going back to Google for an example here is that with Google Photos, there are plenty of apps that you can collect photos, take photos, organize photos, but the aha moment for users of Google Photos was being able to find photos with clever messaging without having to categorize it in any sort of previous work. Right? So the example that was shared here is a dog on a beach. I want to see images of a dog on a beach. I didn't have to categorize all these photos ahead of time to say, this is my dog, this is my beach. The fact that the user can find these photos, what Google was able to achieve here was guiding customers and pre-populating this text to get this criteria for them to realize that this is the type of thing the value proposition get. And again, it wasn't about getting them to create an album. That was not an aha moment. There was nothing differentiated between Google Photos and the other photo applications out on the market. So again, define your aha moments, understand what they are, validate it with your customers, and then come back and find ways to guide your customers to that aha moment. Number 5, create release experiences. I can't tell you how many times in the past in my career, we come close to launch. It is a massive frenzy. We do our best as product teams to collect all of the changes that we've made in the product, distill them into what our customers will find value from, and we document this glorious release note email, and we send it out to our entire user base. What I have found is that doing that practice, although it's very common in what we do in our day-to-day release operations, it doesn't result in the most it doesn't result in what you want, which is customers understanding you can do something or that they can do something with your product, and then actually knowing that it's available. I would launch I'd launch a new feature. I had this experience at Marketo. We would launch a feature. I'd go talk to some of our customer champions. They had no idea that we had done it, and it was something that we learned and adjusted while we were at Marketo. But what we found was that we were creating this release experience. And again, there was areas at Marketo that we could do a better job, but there were some things that we're doing right. So if you look at this flow, there's specific value propositions that you can present to someone ahead of when something is available for release, right? Letting your customers know what's coming. And I call this out by persona. So presenting information to a marketing user within your product very differently than presenting a value prop to a sales user. And the places in which you can reach them as a user of your product, you can reach them within your app, within your product itself. You can reach them through your email as well. Start that release experience having, intentionally going after having multiple touch points with them to let them know what's coming. Then let them know it's available, when it's available. Help them get started. Provide guides within your application to say, hey, this is available for you. Here's how to get started. Let me help. And again, all of this is tailored by persona. You know a great deal about your customers, what roles they have, what access they have within your product, what things they've done in your product and not done. The second item here is that you want to create a persistent location in which they can discover on their own what is available. So some companies are doing a fantastic job here of creating this knowledge base of saying, here's not only what's new, but here are things as a rolling history of what we had released. So customers can on their own time come back and look and see what they may have missed. Post-release, you're now introducing additional follow-up webinar. This is a great example we did at Marketo. We would have quarterly product roundups. We would have a webinar with the entire product team. We would invite our champions to one. We would invite a broader audience of our customers to another. And we would give a much more personalized explanation of the value of what we were delivering, why we delivered it, and a session to where our customers can interact with us and understand, the motivation for doing something, getting feedback. So again, following the release, again, raising awareness, using multiple touch points. And the last item here is not to be forgotten. It is to make sure that you are reminding customers that may or may not have used the feature that you had released. And you can tailor this message, tailor it differently based upon if they had used it but not completed the workflow, for example, or if they hadn't used it at all. Get very different messaging you can deliver. So create a release experience, increase adoption of the things that you're doing because your customers are busy. They are so busy. There's so much going on. Sending a single email really doesn't cut it. All right, here's an example. So there's an account-based marketing solution, Follows, and they've done a great example of a release experience. So they started with that what's coming notice, right? So users in their product, they presented, hey, get ready for it. Something exciting is coming up. Register for this webinar to learn more about it. The second thing that they did is, hey, it's available now. Come take a look, and they can kick off in specific onboarding flows after that. And they were able to personalize this. One of the challenges, I wouldn't say challenges, but because Follows has multiple users that have different value, they did have a marketing user, which has different requirements of their product and different use of their product. They also have sales users. And so what they did was then personalize that onboarding experience to each of those personas. And what they saw, which was tremendous, was they doubled the number of engaged customers with that latest release. And again, being able to not only produce new product features that give your customers value, but making sure that that gets into their hands really becomes the responsibility of the product team. And again, a way for us to step up and help drive growth. Yeah, here's another example. There's Clarizen. They use their product as a marketing channel. So they had, similar to Follows, they had released a new capability, custom objects, to adapt Clarizen to your business. And they presented this within their product, and they wanted to host a webinar to help describe to their users. And what was special about this is not only that they were presenting this as a webinar and marketing the new capability to their users in their product, but they did it so only to the users that it really mattered to. So people who were administrators, they're the ones who are going to understand the value of custom objects, and they were the ones they were able to get in front of. And so comparing this type of engagement within your product to a different channel, take email, for example. Your connection rates on this type of thing, or your engagement rates on an email, ranges anywhere from 30 to 40%, right? Emails go into a queue, and the customer may miss it. What they found was presenting this message, they had upwards of 90% connection rate. So they had over 3,000 of their administrators or users that had administrative capabilities in their product to engage with this with this promotion. It was promoting a new feature, and attended that webinar. So again, using your product as a marketing channel, you've built a tremendous personal vehicle for you to engage with your customers on. So take advantage. Number 7 here, increasing customer retention. Again, we talked about growth is not just acquiring new customers, but it's keeping your customers, increasing that lifetime value. I've got 3 examples here: Sprout Social, Grammarly, and Coursera. These are some of the reactivation engagements that they had created. So when users aren't in your product, it's very unlikely that they're going to realize value, and they're not going to return and renew with you. So what they were able to do, not just with their primary stakeholder or their primary champion within the account, they were able to reach out to all users of that account and make sure that they individually were realizing value and bringing them back into the product. And again, there's very clever ways. There's good examples here. Letting them know that things have changed. Here's what's new since you've been here. Giving them an incentive to come back. Coursera here, they're recommending, look, just spend 10 minutes, right? You don't have to wait to take action. You don't have to think of some great idea before you start to learn more information, right? Just give it 10 minutes a day, right? Reducing that barrier, bringing someone back in with the expectation that they don't have to have hours on end to complete this action. So again, very compelling things that you want to be able to bring to each user. So in summary, as a product team and product leaders, we are now in a very interesting position to step up in our organizations. We have the ability to drive growth. We have the ability to execute these plays just as we would our marketing sales counterparts. And this has a dramatic impact on the growth of your business. So take a look at these plays, prioritizing your roadmap for growth, personalizing that trial experience for those that have either a trial type experience, or if they're still a sales-led organization trying to adapt into this modality, they can now provide their trial customers or provide their sales teams access to information that would give these proof of concepts a much more compelling chance to win. Creating opportunities with product qualified leads, onboarding users to aha moments, creating that release experience, increasing adoption. Use your product as a marketing channel and increase customer retention. So take a look at these 7 product plays. I will transition now into a little Q&A session. So let me remind everyone here that if you have questions, please post them. You can post them out on Twitter, #ProductExperience. I'll be looking for you there. Or you can use the chat box. There's a little Q&A box within the webinar solution there. So don't be shy. And I would love to tell you that I have all the answers. That would be great. I certainly don't, but if there's something that I don't quite know or don't have a good example for, I'd be happy to find out that answer and get it back to you. So don't be afraid to ask some challenging questions. And if you want to throw me some softballs, so that's okay too. So we'll give a few minutes here. All right, so here's a question that came in. How, if I don't have a product-led strategy today, don't offer a trial, how can I get started, was the question. So let me go back. I want you to revisit some of these plays. I'll walk through, let me go through here. Prioritizing your roadmap for growth, certainly applicable. You don't have to have a product-led strategy to do this, although it is, as we discussed, advantageous to have one. You may not have to personalize a trial experience. That one may be less relevant to you. Creating opportunities with product qualified leads. Look at that example from Gusto. I will guarantee that there's opportunities and there's information that you have about what your users are doing with your product that are going to help inform your sales team to identify challenges. So again, go through these plays, see which ones would be applicable. Oh, another great question here. So we are a small startup with limited resources. We likely can't focus on all 7. Would there be certain ones to focus on first to realize growth wins? Absolutely. Looking here at this list, if you don't yet have a large customer base, using your product as a marketing channel I think is valuable, but it may not be the biggest bang for the buck. Prioritizing your roadmap for growth at this stage, that early stage startup, I think is a tremendous way to get started. right? Looking at the features, building to where your new customers are going to realize value and build them into advocates. So I'd say number one is a tremendous starting point. Onboarding users to aha moments. I can tell you that never hurts. I mean, you learn, you iterate, you take small steps in this front, but it never hurts to help your customers realize value. And creating release experiences, right? As you're releasing new things, letting your customers and prospects know what's coming. I'd say, take attack at those three. I think those would be great ones to start with if you're a smaller company just getting off the ground. All right, we'll give a couple more minutes here to questions. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Let me offer this to you. Executing product plays, you can get started today. Please take a look at Aptrinsic. Go to aptrinsic.com. We offer a free trial. We would love to get your feedback on what we're doing. Go to aptrinsic.com, and there's a trial button right there. Go ahead and get started. I'd love to get your feedback and start executing these product plays today. It can only help. Thank you.